FortMesa is part of a generation of tools. It's really built to make cybersecurity easier. Welcome back, everyone, to another episode of the MSP Cyber Roundtable. Today, I have with me the core YouAttest crew. We're going to be talking about key performance indicators today. But before we get into that, I just heard Pizza Day is coming up. And also, it's the Super Bowl, but I forgot to ask Bill, is Pizza Day the same day as the Super Bowl, or is it?
Yeah, that's what I heard this morning on the news. National Pizza Day on Sunday.
There's some collusion going on here. In any case, Bill's got a pizza adventure, and now I am inspired. I feel like I need to organize my own pizza adventure. You've got some actual sourdough, like ready to start cooking up, like any moment now, right?
We're bringing up the sourdough starter tomorrow, making our pizza dough, and then we'll be ready to go for the Super Bowl with lots of 3 or 4 bottles of red wine.
Okay.
There you go.
Wine, pizza, and football. I think I could. I'm not a big football guy, but I think I could get into that. All right. So Garrett's been on our show a few times. So say hi, Garret.
Hey, greetings.
Welcome back, Bill. Kashif, I don't think you've been on the show today, which means that I'm just going to poke at you for a minute. You haven't been here before, right?
No, this is my first time.
Okay. Well, what I love to ask about is how did you end up being a security guy? Because I asked this question and I get there's no normal here. Garret, you had an interesting story. Bill, I remember your story. I'm curious, how long have you considered yourself to be focused on the security space, and what landed you here?
I've been with YouAttest for over 3 years now. But when I joined, I never thought of myself as a security guy.
Uh-huh.
So I evolved working with Garret and his team, and heading operations with the engineers and the whole lot of developers and everything. So it got my interest, and after 1 year, I didn't know, I just became a security guy. So
yeah,
that
sounds familiar.
Yeah.
What about your previous life adventures? Where'd you come from before you joined the team here?
I used to work for a cloud company that were one of the pioneers in creating virtual desktops, even before Microsoft and VMware. And I was part of that team who actually developed web HVDs and these virtual machines that people could have access to, even if they have old laptops or old desktop machines. They can even use the latest ones virtually. So we were one of the pioneers. So that's how it started. And after serving 8 years in the cloud environment, I came to YouAttest.
Yeah, it's interesting. It seems like we're in this virtuous cycle here when it comes to thin clients versus fat clients, right? We started out as mainframe attached terminals, which turned to like connected mini computers and stuff like that, right? And then we had PCs, right? But they connected to a server, but they were pretty fat, right? They basically did all the computation locally. And then we decided we wanted to get at them remotely. And desktop streaming, it really took, I'm going to say that 30 years, and for most of those 30 years, it was a rapidly developing space. And I think these days, we sort of take desktop streaming for granted, but it took a long time to get here, where it was simple and easy. And now it's funny, we've gone full circle because now we're back to everything's in a web browser again, right?
Yep,
And
exactly,
we're
exactly.
back to the mainframe
Back
connect
in the days, like most exciting thing to see was to see and experience the remote desktop connection. You are sitting somewhere and you're just trying to access a machine
Mhm.
elsewhere, and that was the most exciting thing to see. But now you look at it, and we have come a long way from that
So
point.
It's like when my son goes to Guitar Center, I always I want the guy to take the screen and turn it towards me because they're still using that 1970s, 1980s mainframe login. I'm like, oh, come on, let me go. Let's go down to the bottom left because I used to work for PI and they were used mainframes. I'm like, you can really look at some cool things here. And I was like, I'll just
Yeah.
just finish up the right picks, said I'll be fine.
So I was in a tire shop not too long ago, and
Exactly.
the
Yeah.
guys were complaining that the corporate finally took their multi-part dot matrix printers away because the paper's a fortune. I don't know if everyone knows this.
Yeah.
The paper is a fortune. But the guys are complaining. They're like, it's so slow. These laser printers have to warm up, and anyway.
Here's something you didn't know, Kashif. You know when he saw his matrix printers? I used to work there. I was the seed programmer guy for the matrix printers in Temple, Texas. That was
I
like
hated the
30
sound
years
of it. The
There you
sound
go.
it made. Oh, that
The
was
the
annoying.
really there was the ones that weren't exactly a dot matrix. They were like these balls that rotated to type,
Yes.
and they sounded like a machine gun.
Yes.
And I swear the paper would fly out of the thing. That's how fast it was. Anyway. So we're gonna get deep into KPIs today, but I wanted to start out with a little bit of an intro. So I'm gonna do that now, and then we're gonna be talking about how YouAttest is really like forging ahead here in this space. I'm a little far ahead here on the slides.
Go
All right.
for it.
Security KPIs. This is it's talk about going full circle in my career, because it wasn't the beginning of my career, but 20 years ago, I was deep in, I guess, what was when the entire corporate IT landscape was trying to understand, well, how do we move beyond Microsoft apps into databases and draw business insights, was a new thing 20 years ago. We take that all for granted right now. And so there was a whole industry of people creating metrics and measures and KPIs. And a lot of that really pushed the industry forward. But it never really penetrated into IT. This was my experience. Now, the security industry was aware of these things, and part of security philosophy in general is you need to implement your security. You need to, enforce it or automate it, and then, of course, you need to measure it and make sure it's working. And so, people in security land really grabbed onto these SMART goals, KPIs, metrics, measures. They get really geeky about it, right? And when they create their 300-page security reports. But I think this is new. It's still new in the industry in terms of wide adoption. And it's really important that we just talk about it a little bit today. So just high level, KPI is a key performance indicator. So it's a measurable value, but it's an indicator. So sometimes these are hybrid. The idea is that the KPI represents an organizational goal in math, right? So the organization chooses its goal, which may not be math. Yeah, make more money, but it may be something a little bit more general. We want to achieve customer satisfaction, right? We just talk about it a little bit today. And then you have to really figure out how do I create a number that backs that, right? So oftentimes you need a series of numbers that measure something like customer satisfaction. You bring them together in some way, and then that becomes your KPI. So your organization can be driven by one number. Are we in the green or are we in the red? Do we need to do better or do we not about customer satisfaction? From the perspective of security, why does this matter at all? For one thing, when you go to invest in cybersecurity, it's really important that you're not pouring your money down a hole. You really want to put your money in places where the organization needs to improve. You also need to know when the money that you've invested in security is actually working, because oftentimes security is silent unless it fails, right? So if you're not measuring, you literally have no idea if you're dumping money down a hole. You need to measure it. You need to take that data back. And if something's not working, you need to invest that money someplace else, redeploy that operational or spend or capital. In addition to that, of course, sometimes things can happen that are important right now. And if you're looking at the data and you're watching KPIs, it could be a good indicator of something that needs to happen. So how do you create them? In security world, usually there's three components, although people build them in different ways. Oftentimes there's a benchmark or a threshold that you use in developing a metric, and then you collect that data metric over time. And if you're super lucky, that metric is your KPI. But usually what happens is you need to combine multiple metrics to come up with a single indicator. What you don't want is 5 different metrics to measure one security practice, because then you're not really sure, well, which indicator should we be paying attention to? You really want a key indicator, right? And so sometimes you need to multiply the numbers together or create a hybrid score of some type. So there's different types. You can have risk-based KPIs. They could be about performance around, for example, incident management. You could be looking at things like how long does it take us to patch? What's our normal uptime? You could be looking at, well, how are we doing generally in compliance in an area? Although if you really want to take rigor to your cybersecurity practices, you do need to go down into the individual security areas and establish those goals for each. So I'm gonna give you 2 examples that are sort of well, they're gonna sound simple when I describe them. It does take quite a bit of work to put this stuff into place. And then we're gonna today talk about the identity space, because YouAttest is really doing some really great things there. So here's one example. In vulnerability management, an organization should choose where they want to manage vulnerabilities to. How good do they want to be, right? Here's an example. Auto accept any vulnerability that's below 0.1 EPSS. And if it's above that, the risk is too high. We need to do something. Now, that's not particularly useful. So we also need to put an SLA on that to make sure that, well, we do want to make sure that we've given ourselves time to patch or do things normally. We really only want to measure when things are not happening the way they should be, particularly when new CVE is released, as part of a disclosure process. Microsoft comes right out the next day with a patch, and then you patch a few days after that. That would be a normal thing, right? And when you're doing everything properly, it shouldn't bump your score at all, right? But if you measure that day after day, and this is where a metric comes in case, right? How many vulnerabilities are over 0.1 and they're 7 days after detection? And you record that every day. You take that metric every day. Day 1, day 2, day 3, day 30. You can then use that, create a KPI on that. How many of the last 30 days were we above 0, right? If you were only out of compliance for 5 out of 30 days, you're doing great, actually. If you were out of compliance for 30 out of 30 days, you're completely failing in vulnerability management according to the goals you've set, right? And so in this way, you can use that performance indicator to really measure, are we doing the things we're supposed to be doing, not just how many vulnerabilities are there. I'm going to give you another simple example. Training. This is something that a lot of organizations fail at, so I'm going to use it as an example. As inputs, we need to know what training is each user supposed to take, how frequently should it occur, usually once a year, right? How many days do they have when a new training or when they're hired to take that training? We don't expect them to take 30 hours of training on day 1, right? Take those inputs and then create some metrics. For each training content package, for each employee, was this training completed in the last 365 days? Of course, we want to involve that 30-day grace period, right? Now we can create a KPI. What percentage of employees have completed all their training, right? And that, again, gives us an understanding in the organization of, are we 100% good on training, right? We should be, particularly if we have that 30-day grace period. If we're not at 100%, it's probably not the user failing. It's probably someone failing to hold them accountable. So those are two areas that we really need KPIs to be able to drive that security practice forward. And I think there are many areas of security where that's the case. I sometimes tell people this is about 2/3 of security, right? Is really paying attention to your performance and reacting to it on a process level. So, Garret, I just put these examples out there, but
No, I really like what you got. I really, as I take notes, whatever, paying attention to your performance. And
yeah, I mean,
everyone
I've
in the
been
call, of course I'm paying attention. Okay, but how the hell do you message that?
yeah, I
Right?
don't
No,
I
that's where APIs come in. The greatest thing I saw in the last year when someone presenting, obviously was Matt, your discussion about pizza, not Chicago pizza not being mentioned. Obviously, it just fell to B level. Okay, that's all. All right, but
what about
but
Detroit pizza?
but there was a woman. Her name was Cynthia Stamer. She's a lawyer out of Texas, and she's talks very Texan, which means distinct and indirect, which is great, right? And she was talking to an LA crowd, and she was people talk more, kick around the bush, that kind of stuff, right? She got up and goes, if you don't have the evidence of you doing these actions, and she itemized, you're not doing your job. And I was like, it is there to like a pin drop, right? And what I would say, because we'll get into it about why is KPIs up? Because if you can't prove that you're doing stuff, you're not doing your job. According to, and we can call them bean counters, we can whatever, but that's just how it is, right? Is that we're all measured, we're all being graded, we're all being whatever. And the most important thing is you said it in your lead up, is day to day. What is the trend? And how the hell, it's okay when you get home and you say, I feel, right? That when, between, 7:30 and 5:30, guys, the I feel doesn't work, right? It,
I see it every day. I do a lot of assessments, and I go out and I do verbals, and people say, "Yeah, I got this, I got this, I got this," and then I say, "Okay, now it's time for documentation. Show me what you got."
show me what you got.
And
Cynthia
and
said,
some,
show you, if you don't have the evidence, you're not doing your job. And
yeah.
that's, sure, it's an ISACA term, a COVID term, KPI, but that's really what it is prove to me that what you're doing, first of all, give me evidence that you're actually doing something, and give me the evidence that what we're doing, and this is the West, y'all, is getting better.
Oh
right?
yeah, I mean that's
Right. That's what we always have to do. I got a buddy always throwing these quantum computing, which I think is fascinating, right? Stocks, right? And I'm looking, I go, these guys are making less money than they were the year before. How the hell are you going to jump into that, right? And I'm not, no tangents, and tangents are good, but what it is that's the way our brains are wired now. What is the trend?
so like I said, before I landed in security, I spent some time in business intelligence. So this is old hat to me. And when I was studying formalized cybersecurity, metrics and measures just made sense to me. But do you think that these are pretty common in the security world right now?
I like the history part of it. I do like that you started with a history, like Kashif. And Kashif, when you were doing, because I worked with you in the desktops, we cared about security. Okay. So it wasn't 3 years. You've been paying attention to security for like 8 years. And that's, once again, security. Security, I mean, people say, well, did you have a CISSP or were you putting on two-factor? That's not effing security, guys. That's, 2% of it, right? Are you testing the form? Are you, what is the mechanism of access you're giving? Blah, blah, blah. That's security. But where I'll say again is when I got my first CISSP, which was, I just had to put it up. It was like 2005, Gosh, I don't even think you were smoking then. I'm picking out. Is I don't think there wasn't anything about measurement. There was more like, people can hack your computer. It's like, all right, yeah, I got that or whatever, right? But I now, I got some other certificates last year. Is It's all about quantifying and measuring what we're doing, and I think it is a later trend, and I think historically security was pretty much left alone or left out of the KPI question for a long time.
Yeah.
And for better or for worse.
Well, it's a little funny because even in the large enterprise space, we've been doing these quantitative risk assessments for decades and decades, right? But they're they're not based on real measures that are being like really until recently, right? They haven't been based on real metrics and measures that are being recorded. And so they're all just like fabricated by the assessor or the auditor, like at the moment of the audit. But it really is possible to look at the actual performance and the actual threat space now and understand, like, am I in trouble or am I not in trouble? Like, we can actually sort of see that with evidence, with proof now. It's no longer a mystery. It's like it's very clear whether you're protected or not, if you care to to figure it out, I guess.
No, and there is something that has changed, and I would say in the last couple of years in the security community. And Kashif and Bill, we were talking about this before, and in the design we go in. And I'll since I love your format here, it's so loose and whatever. I believe a lot of the metrics were a little like that old Monty Python skit that they would have the news reporter look at a screen and go, the green graph is 23%. The red graph is 45%. And the blue graph is 23%. Back to you, Bill. And it's like just crap. It was just crap. Whereas there is no time that I bring up a metric, right? Is to someone in the industry now, because they've seen enough of the green, blue, and red graphs, is it actionable? Right?
So are you seeing more demand now? Is that
I see intelligence is what I'm saying, right? And I always think, is that our job is the inventors of these products and all that is I believe, this is a Garret opinion, I can say whatever. I think that enterprises are so understaffed now that there's not a whole lot of wild mining going on. Okay? When you're fighting fires, when you're running, around or whatever, the job of what could be is up to the Garret and Bills and Kashifs on this side of the fence. And then what we have to do is show the enterprises and build focuses on the MSPs and the channels is show the channel what is possible, what is quickly visible to them, and then what is actionable. So there is no question there is a desire from the customer base to be more, that the tools they use to be more efficient. Now, how is that presented? How it's more efficient? How they can get more out of less people? No, that's up to us. We have to build it and then show them. We're not getting not whatever. People are doing day jobs, but I'm not getting. To be blunt, I'm not getting the ideas of what to do for the field. I'm getting the ideas and the whatever by listening to the conversation and then processing them through a product and service standpoint. People are
Well, so this isn't with the more knowledgeable business managers, and I think in large part we're talking about CISOs, but sometimes a company doesn't have a full-time CISO, right?
Good point.
So it's whoever the smart person is who's basically stuck with that diligence responsibility, right? Is they need to understand why do they need to do what they're doing, right? How are their tools working right now, right? I'm curious, like, how are you seeing people use these, and where are they bringing this back to the enterprise? Is this just in
Yeah.
the sales cycle, or are you seeing it like really pulled back into corporate enterprise risk?
I'm going to answer this as the enterprise, and I have Bill speak how the MSP would see it. In the enterprise, what the CISOs and the people, let's be blunt, whatever the hell the title is, the people doing the job of the CISO. Okay, so let's say the security needs what they are is it's 6 o'clock in the morning and they just logged on. What is that they have to face? And that is relevant. And let me take it into a identity, 28 minutes in. I believe the tools, and I work for a hacking company, one of the better ones, Silence, first ones to put AI in the desktop. They were damn good at figuring out that something anomalous, and that's what AI is. Come on, guys, knock it off. And I'm not going to do a Gen AI.
Are we gonna go down an AI rabbit hole
No,
right now?
what I'm
Save it
just
for
saying is
later?
I love machine learning. I don't really need my desktop to talk to me. So, okay, I'm sorry. I just don't. Okay. So, but I think machine learning is phenomenal. I mean,
All right, wait, I'm gonna do it, Garrett, because we got some news this week, which is apparently there's some large language models trying to figure out how to save government money, and I'm just thinking like, wait, these large language models don't know how to add. So,
God bless them. God bless people.
what?
It's really all good. I really, yeah. LLMs are great, guys, and LLMs do machine learning. Try to find a YouTube video that shows you that. There's only like 1 out of 9,000 because everyone's just trying to figure out, how they can stop talking to their girlfriend and get their computer to talk to them. I'm sorry, that was me ranting. So what I'm seeing, what I see is enterprises need what they should be. What is the biggest threat right now? And Garrett, come on, what the fuck are you talking about? There's CrowdStrike, there's SentinelOne, and they're doing a great job. They're doing a great job of letting us know what type of monitorable threats are going through the enterprise in the terms of like malware and events, right? But what is the risk of our number one threat? Our identities, right? Where is that on, and I always cite my buddy that was my CTO in my first company I started Secure, Kelly. Where's that for Kelly? Where's Kelly's number that says, okay, what I really got to do is these users in the AWS group, the Drubers in the Azure group, I've really got to review these like immediately. Okay, that's got to get better, and that's the problem of one enterprise. Bill, take it away. What's the problem of it? Like the MSP, doing many of these.
Well, we just ran into one the other day, Kashif and I, where one of the MSPs put in a virtual CISO into a company that has brought a bunch of companies together. They have 7 domains. They're trying to figure out who has access to what. And it's all over the place. So
yeah, and the other thing is they're playing whack-a-mole. Like the Kelly at the one company, he's playing whack-a-mole on his own company. The MSP is playing whack-a-mole on the client. I know you're talking about has 500, right? And there is no question that their job is, and I'm sure they have dedicated people in the sector. But of the 20 companies, this FTE is paying attention. What is the number one problem across the 20, right? Or 50 or whatever? That is where, and I do believe, given that the number one problem in hacking and in fraud, this is called it fraud, is identity, then what for the MSP, what's their number one problem? Getting a hold of the identities that they're managed and, let's use an American term, that they're liable for, right?
I see this play out in many partners. I'm not going to say all of them, but it's really typical for because I'm looking at from the compliance angle, right? And I get down to the safeguards and I say, okay, what's your access granting practice? What's your access revoking practice? A couple others, right? A couple other things I ask, and they often come down to, well, that's the client's responsibility, and then you go ring up the client, and the client's like, well, that's the IT guy's responsibility. And the reality is, like, the client thinks the IT provider is on top of all these identity security issues, and the IT company is like, I've never met these people, I've never talked to these people. They're just like lines in our account directory, right? And there's a lot of mutual shared responsibility failings. So I could see where
This is
some extra
America. Once you
intelligence.
accept a paycheck, you're accountable. That's
Yeah.
what, you know what?
But they do. It's a hard problem. They need
Yeah,
tools, right? They need tools and
they
systems and
need tools.
processes.
Oh yeah, yeah, and that's it. That's what Bill's messaging out there. His messaging goes, hold it. Not only will we provide you the service of the access of you that you can do this for your customers, but we can elevate the information to you more rapidly, so you can do a better job of managing.
Oh, and then not only that, justifying their existence by bringing that value.
Yeah,
Right?
particularly if they're trying to bill subscription, right? Like it's they got to show the value, right? Not just before they sell, right? But every month, right? They deliver the bill, like the client needs to know, like, I mean that if it was me, and I'm a security geek, so of course this is the way I think, and I was doing managed services like that, I would be putting my like SLA performance measured from KPIs right on the frickin' bill. I would be like, this is what you paid for, this is how we performed.
And we are seeing, and once again, you know, and you had a great question about 10 minutes ago about what are they asking for? Well, they don't know what to ask for. And that's why we do these webinars. That's why I do the blogs. That's why I do the LinkedIn posts. Is that MSPs, you should be expecting your vendors to put in metrics. I ran a two-factor company for 9 years. I was a chief technical guy. I was the guy, whatever. I didn't put a single damn metric in that product. And we got that up to a couple hundred customers and all that. There was nothing there. And it wasn't that, you know, we just didn't know to do it, that the discussions weren't there. Trust me, if a customer had asked us, we would have. But that's where I'm just saying, now what we have to do as vendors is lead, is goes, hold it. Your customers want you to do this. And both Bill and both of you, Matt, said it in a good way. This is how you show your customers you have value. This is how you legitimize your check every week.
Well, so okay, so we can get super specific here. How are you guys using KPIs? Like, how are you contributing to this as YouAttest, right? For the service provider and identity governance.
Kashif, can you please show a screen while I'll just talk over it? Okay. So we are starting in the journey. Well, we've always for the longest term, you see the middle graph, audits by state. And don't get me wrong, because you had a great couple of slides at the beginning, and those were fantastic, right? And I was doing some research what the industry would say. There's great stuff by RSA, Mimecast, and others of what security KPIs. One of them basically said, which is the center screen, it says, what is your state of the security audits? I said straight up, and they only listed 10, and that was right up there, and said, what is the state of your security audits? If you are not showing that your security audits are being done every month, that's a key performance indicator. You're simply not doing your job, okay? Now, on the left is one we're just bringing out right now, and once again, wasn't requested, but when we show to people, they go, well, that's really good. Watch the key phrase in there. It is a metric on what percentage of your users you have audited in a time period, 30 days, 90 days, 120 days. And that's up to, basically your security committee. What is our performance standard? And that gets set, and then you need to be able to view it. Now,
well, that's how I would sell it, Garrett. I would sell a number, right? I would sell 50% every month and 100% every 90 days or something like that. And that would be in the service description for me. And however I manage to do that, right, I get paid, right? And it's that way, my interest, right, and the client's interest and the security outcome are all aligned, right? And that's, I think, how you show the value.
That's great. And what we were ready when we're discussing with people and we had conversations was straight out said, what is needed then is actionable, right? So what this will also have shortly is not only what percentage of the users have been reviewed, which I love the way you do with that. That is how the MSPs sell their value. Is then also what is left? Who hasn't been reviewed, right? And that might be a great discussion to say someone sees this and says, "Oh wow, we're not reviewing everyone in the GCP, every 30 days." Okay, we've got to make a policy change. We've got to include these people. And that's exactly what's in a product. So a performance indicator that is quick to view, gives me a status of my security status. There's a printout right here of saying that should be my security audits. And then a performance indicator of what percentage you're at in a time period that the team decided on. And then an actionable item of viewing which users need to be reviewed. So that's where we're starting with the KPIs and going forward with.
So you used this acronym earlier, KRIs, and I presume that's like the opposite of a performance indicator, right? And I in my history used KPIs both positively and negatively, right? But KRI is the other side of that, right? Like that's the risk. Is that right?
Yeah, I wouldn't say opposite. I say corollary, but maybe I'm being pedantic in English. Is a key well, isn't that kind of redundant in security? But anyways, sorry. Is the concept and Kashif and the team talked about this? What would be relevant? Well, a key risk indicator to me would be your essential groups that you haven't reviewed in a time period. Okay? Straight out. What is that? If your Amazon group has not been reviewed, in 180 days, there's a percentage out there, that's a risk indicator. And then on top of that, Kashif, is that the screen you're showing?
Yes.
Can you show our now U.S. panel the ITS Identity Trust Score?
I can certainly do that if I.
Yeah. So
Here.
here's a key risk indicator. Why not use ML, right, to help us understand what our most vulnerable accounts are, right?
And I know we were both bashing AI earlier. I rely on ML in my product. Sounds like you rely on ML in your product for statistical correlation, right?
Yeah. I got a daughter and a wife. I don't need more things to talk to when I get home. There you go. So I just the great desire to have our devices talk to us is I just don't feel it, guys. I just really don't, So, but I need actionable information. Okay. And look at what Kashif is showing me. What if I was able to have a dashboard that showed me my users and showed me a key risk indicator, which users, right, were over permission and had segregation of duty violations that would have reduced their score and haven't been reviewed. And then I was able to then click on those users and then actually do a review of those users. That would be a key risk indicator that someone can take action on. It's an actionable item. And there's no doubt of this because Kashif and I were working with customers when we first showed it. They're like, okay, don't just show me that the user has a risk to them because of a low risk score. Show me what I can do about it.
Well, this is, if you're an enterprise, it's like, oh, great, here's a way I can reduce risk. But I really think this is a great opportunity for MSPs because honestly, I've been at the edge of the MSP industry for a couple decades now, maybe more, depending on how you want to count. And they're always in this race to stay relevant to their clients, to create value, to continue to offer value to their clients. And if you can't offer value to your clients, you become commoditized and you end up a dinosaur and you get replaced by your clients if they're smart. And I love what you're talking about right now, because this is something your client can't do, won't do, doesn't want to do. And it's something for an MSP. If you've got several clients, many clients, you can do this across all your clients. You can charge money for this action of reviewing identities for risk. This is literally something that your clients can't buy that off the shelf. They would have to hire a person to do it. They would have to do it themselves. So if you put this in your service description, you can charge money for this value creation, and it's very easy to prove why you're there. That's not commoditized, right? This is really it's
Take
super
it away,
important.
Bill, because I know you've been having those conversations. How the KRIs can be of value to the MSPs.
Well, the big thing is to use our tool to address, like you said, the number one problem in cybersecurity today. It's identity security. Everybody's worried about, hardware hacks and stuff like that. Nobody's worried about people getting their credentials stolen. So basically, use YouAttest to do a better job of finding overprivileged accounts and finding the orphan and ghost accounts, and then doing whatever you need to do internally to shut those accounts down or remove some of those accounts from the overprivileged users. So,
and that seems to be, Bill, I 100% agree with you. That seems to be a major problem with all the calls, or most of the calls that we go on, that orphan accounts are the biggest problems that comes into the way of cleaning up your identity. So this can be one of the risk indicators, that how many orphan accounts do you have as compared to your total users, total identities in there. And then out of those users, how many users are inactive? That could be another risk indicator, that you need to review your inactive accounts if you want to clean up your identities and carry on with your periodical audits. So that's 100% true.
well, we were on a call the other day where the customer goes, "Hey, we have contractors that come in and out of the company all year long, and we don't know how to deactivate them. We don't want to get rid of them, but we want to when they're not here for 3 months, we don't want anybody be able to get a hold of those credentials. And when they come back, we want to reactivate them."
Yeah,
Right.
I usually like to see no more than 30 days of silence out of a user there. They should be put to sleep, right? If they don't need to log in, right? I think that what you guys just described, Bill, you and Kashif, you just described this workflow that I identified 20 minutes ago. I was talking about that shared responsibility model between the service provider and the client, and the client's got their users and the service provider's got their users. And so sure, the MSP knows who works for them and the client knows who works for them, right? And you really do need a workflow, right, to get both sides to agree on who is supposed to be here, right? So this is I'm super excited about this. I'm gonna break the mold here a little bit on the discussion. Where do you think we're going to be going in the future here? What's next? What's super exciting for you guys right now to journey in this space?
I'll take that. There is something I got from the CISA, that is our U.S. Cybersecurity Infrastructure and Security Agency. Now I got to make a joke here. DOGE will, of course, get rid of that second security in that thing, because only a government agency would use security twice in an acronym. But I think, and y'all can look it up, I love Zero Trust. I think the best description of Zero Trust and how to actionalize it comes from CISA and their ZTMM, Zero Trust Maturity Model. And this is where the metrics go. The metrics, and I couldn't agree more, are like the Monty Python, red, blue, red graph. And next time someone shows you something, think of that comedy, okay? Because it's like, what the hell does that mean? The optimal state the optimal state of zero trust is when the components start talking to each other. Okay? So the most important thing we're going to do with our KPIs and KRIs is put them into other products, right? So the Kelly of the world, the CISO and the gentleman who's got the 500 accounts that Bill works with, right? When they go to their dashboard, they got a single dashboard and they see, wow, I got to deal with company 13 because they've got 70% of their AWS admins haven't been reviewed in over 30 days, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it's on his dashboard, and he doesn't have to go to the YouAttest dashboard. I think that is the trend. The trend is to take the information that we get, our wonderful ML information and all that, and get that up on other people's dashboards. And I don't care if it's a wonderful GRC dashboard or I don't care if it's a CrowdStrike dashboard, but that's where it needs to be.
Now, we just spent 20 years teaching the IT industry how to do identity federation, but it's basically in its most basic form right now. Identity federation. We're not even all doing, the level of security in that federation is not all equal. Group visibility, SCIM like provisioning is not really fully adopted. But what you're talking about seems like an area of expansion in the federation to say, oh, I'm gonna plug my application in here. I'm gonna plug my identity provider there, and I'm gonna plug my my risk lake about the identity in here, right? Or something like that. Is that sort of what you're thinking? That in the future, the whole federation, right, just understands how risky that user is right now.
First of all, you brought up a memory, and since it's your show, I love the tangents. I don't care about clothes. I got 10 of these white shirts because they're the exact same shirt. You guys are laughing because they all know it's true. The one shirt that I got upset that was gone was I had a S2ML shirt. And I was like, what the hell is S2ML? I work for Integrity. We basically invented federation, and we called it S2ML. Okay? I have no idea what the two stood for. And I had a t-shirt that said, that became SAML. That became the federation. Because we had a single sign-on product, and then it went over to whatever. So I do believe that SSO is there. Okay, you start talking SCIM and all that stuff. You know that we're light years behind. We're researching ways to utilize ML for doing provisioning. Mm-hmm. So it basically to figure out the APIs and stuff. We're working with a partner on that. So that's where I see that space is going, because we're not there. I mean, nothing wrong with SCIM. It's just that it's just not in the a standard that says YouAttest wrote its SCIM standard, so I can plug in everything out there. That's pure fantasy, and everyone out there is just coughed up their coffee or tea when I said that.
Well, we've barely got full names floating around right now.
Yeah.
Maybe, but it's early days, right? And I know that the IT industry, once it has a solid foundation, which is that, okay, every organization does federation. Everyone's got a federation. Everyone understands in the IT infrastructure world how to federate, right? Stacking these other concepts on top can happen really quickly if people see the value. So I think you're right. I think that we have to move that direction because of all the identity risk. I can't wait. And this is fun, like you could tell I'm a real security geek. I can't wait for this year's Verizon breach report to come out to find out is identity still on top, and I'm pretty sure it's going to be. But
it's going to be on top. There you go. There you go. I don't think AS400 and mainframe hacking will pass it. Sorry.
Yeah, no, it's clearly going to be on top, but I'm sure there's going to be insights in there about what type of identity.
Good point. Yes.
What type of identity issues do we really need to focus on right now, right? And I know that, but what's the problem is maybe varied from year to year, but the solution's a little simpler, because if you're keeping your roles scoped appropriately, you're keeping least common access privileges in place, and you're doing your identity reviews, right? That if you're doing all those things, right, the impact is so much lower, right? So much lower.
100%. 100%.
All right.
I do think when you talk that way, I do think basically one of the biggest hacks that's growing, and I don't know if we really haven't been measuring it, is basically authorization hacks. The best way we have that is calling it an insider threat. But given that everyone on the network is basically an insider, I think they're all authorization hacks, which takes us back to zero trust, which is really it's not an authentication platform, it's a authorization platform.
Yeah. I mean, I'm still seeing when I read pen test reports, right? I'm still seeing captured identities floating over the local network because they're old Active Directory protocols. And then people are taking these identities and they're escalating privilege and they're moving around laterally, right? And that is the type of thing that zero trust and identity risk analysis should solve for, right? Hey, this user doesn't usually float over here from that direction. This user doesn't usually do that thing. This user hasn't been seen in 6 months, right? That's the kind of thing that we really can keep on top of.
Let me turn it to Bill. What do you think the MSPs will care about most in 2025?
Making money. And keeping their customer base. But I wanted to throw this in too really quick because we were talking about, the side benefit of looking at the last time a user's been reviewed is
yes.
If they haven't used it in 30 or 60, 90 days, why do we buy these people a license?
Good point.
Right.
Oh yeah, that's a great way to prove
reducing our license cost.
Yeah, that's a great way to not only for the MSP perhaps to cut costs on their side if they are perhaps not billing through on licenses, but also to just show your customer that they can trust you, right? That you're not overbilling them. I think that makes a lot of sense.
Money. We're saving you money. Look, we found all these people are not using this application.
Yeah. Well, guys, it's a Friday afternoon. My mind's wandering towards a pizza journey, Bill. I'm inspired. Do you guys want to do you guys want to give our audience a call to action here? How is the best way to get started here with these concepts? I know we've got they got to figure out a revenue model. They got to find out their tool suite. They probably need some support.
Bill, why don't you start, and then I'll just go on top.
The best way to do it is just reach out to sales@youattest.com. It comes right to me, gives you a link, and you can just book time with myself and Kashif, and we can run you through, a larger demo. We can talk business, how to move forward, and how we can help your customers out.
How could I possibly add on that? Well done, Bill. Yep.
Yeah, sounds good. Well, next week, we're doing I've never done a 3-part series, but we're doing part 3 of a 3-part series next week. And it's Right a Boom. We sat down with one of my legal friends and Marvin B from MB Systems and the Business IT podcast, and we've been talking. We did a Left a Boom, we did What to Do on Boom Day, and now we're going to talk about Right a Boom, how to respond and recover. So that's next week. I can't wait to look forward to that. That'll be on Valentine's Day, 2:30 p.m. Eastern. All right, guys, you want to leave any predictions?
Yeah, don't forget to buy flowers for your your significant other. Otherwise, it'd be up Schitt's Creek.
All right, that's a good warning for next week. No Chiefs, no Kansas friends here. Does no one want to put some money down right now on the air live? What are we looking at this weekend?
Is anyone really an Eagles fan? I'm sorry. I'm sure there are.
Someone's gonna let you know.
Yeah, I'm gonna say, write me on LinkedIn. I guess so. I mean,
All right.
I mean, sure. I mean, when I go to a mall, I look for a Santa Claus to throw a battery at. That's just a normal, thing to do. I'm sorry. There's an old story about that. Anyways, all the best, guys.
All right.
Thank you.
Thanks,
Bye,
everybody.
everyone.
Bye.